Good evening and welcome to the Council Advisory Committee of April the 8th, 2024. I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement, and I'd like to begin by recognizing that the land upon which we work, live, and gather is the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Mi'kmaq people. As settlers, our relationship with the LNU is based on the peace and friendship treaties initially signed by the Mi'kmaq Nation and the Crown. We honor our responsibility as treaty people and commit to working in partnership with Mi'kmaq people and communities to foster a more equitable province. In Nova Scotia, we recognize we are all treaty people. The meeting is being live streamed on the Town of Kentville YouTube channel, and the most up-to-date meeting package is on the website. And I will call the meeting to order. Have all councillors received and reviewed their packages? Does any member of council have any information pertaining to a matter before the council which has not been publicly circulated? As the CAC committee, we will vote as a committee to either send business forward to the council meeting for ratification, return to staff for further information, or defeat the recommendations. The council would be voting electronically on all motions except administration, which will be a show of hands. Are there any conflict of interest that the council should be aware of before the meeting commences? The chair notes tonight that we have regrets from Mayor Snow and also Councillor York, but we do have quorum. We have been provided with the proposed agenda. CEO, do you have any additions to the agenda?
Yes, Your Worship, I have two, both of them to the in-camera session. One item deals with the Kentville Police Services contract, and the other is a human resources discussion or issue.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further additions or deletions to the agenda from council? Hearing none, can I have somebody move to approve the agenda as circulated? Thank you, thank you. All in favor? Motion carried. Okay. So we've been provided with the Council Advisory Committee minutes from March the 11th. They've been distributed for approval. Does anybody see any changes in the minutes? Hearing none, can I have somebody move to approve the March 11th CAC minutes? Okay, thank you. Second. Okay, all in favor? Motion carried. Okay. Tonight for presentations, we have the silver gliders up first. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Hello, Deputy Mayor and Councillors and CEO and Deputy Clerk. My name's Maya Bevan. I'm the minister at the Anglican Churches of St. John's and Kingsport. I'm also a chaplain at 14 Wayne Greenwood, and I serve as the president of the Kentville Silver Gliders. And thank you very much to Jennifer for the invitation to come and do a short presentation to you. We are one of the recipients of the community grants over the last few years, and so we welcome this chance to introduce ourselves more fully to you. Jennifer also helped me put together quite a beautiful presentation. So here we go. So who we are as the Kentville Silver Gliders. We're a member of Skate Canada and Skate Nova Scotia, and we provide high quality skating instruction that promotes the joy of skating for everyone. We've been a registered Skate Canada club in Kentville since 1975, and that means that our 50-year anniversary, our golden anniversary, will be in 2025. So we're already starting to think of ways to celebrate that together. We bring a lot to the community. Our Learn to Skate programs are vital for teaching children how to enjoy the ice, which is so much of our Canadian culture. Here you can see some photos of the smallest skaters in our program. These are the pre-cans, they're called. They start at 2 years old. And you can also see one of the older skaters there. She's dressed in a costume. And she is a program assistant, so she's one of our more experienced skaters who volunteers and gains important volunteering experience helping with the little ones. There's also can skaters in the background, so they might be ages 4 to perhaps 10 or 12, and we can put almost 70 children on the ice at once. We're very organized in how we do this programming. This programming comes from Skate Canada, and our coaches are certified, very experienced, very knowledgeable, wonderful in the sport. And this year we've taught 80 children how to skate. Many of these will return again next year. And if you do the math over 50 years, that's a lot of skating that we've helped people learn and experience in the Annapolis Valley. This is a photo of some of our star skaters. So when they graduate with all their badges and ribbons through the Can Skate program, they move on to the star skate levels, and they begin to really learn the sport of figure skating. And they're doing their jumps and their spins, and many of these skaters here that you see compete currently at the provincial and regional levels. We have skaters that are also competing nationally. Our coach was recently in Calgary for the Special Olympics, our head coach, Cheryl Gaston, who's been a coach for over 40 years and brings so much to the club. Also of note that most of our skaters are female, and our club provides an amazing opportunity to keep girls and young women in recreation, which, as you may know, the age group of 11 to 14, sometimes that's when girls and young women can kind of fall away from sport. And this is a beautiful community that we provide for them to keep learning and using their bodies and making their goals and meeting their goals in their sport. Here you can see some dressed up kids. So twice a year we have skate shows at Christmas, and we just completed our spring show, which was Alice in Wonderland this year. This is a ton of volunteer work, and we run on volunteer power in our club. We've got the costumes and the programming, and our head coach bringing the music together, making the show. So our shows are well attended, they're good fundraising, and they provide an opportunity for people in the community to gather and see what amazing things these kids can do. I'm going to go back one. Next year, 2024-25, we hope to put in a bid to host a competition in Kentville. So that will bring about 300 skating families to town. Many of them will stay overnight in the area. And they'll come from all over the province, hopefully, to compete here. We won a bid 2 years ago for another competition, and are looking forward to doing that again. We'd also like to say thank you this evening. You'll see that's our head coach, Cheryl, on the right. She always says that the Kentville Centennial Arena ice is the best in the area. She works and skates at many rinks in Nova Scotia, and she's highly complimentary of the work that your staff do in keeping the ice beautiful for our skaters. We'd like to say thank you for the Town of Kentville Community Grant that we've benefited from over the last 2 years, and have put in an application again for the following season. Our hopes for the future. We'd like to continue to grow as a club as we head into our golden anniversary next year. As you can imagine, COVID was a tough time, of course, for all sports organizations. We have rebounded from that, very glad to say, and it feels really good. We're hoping for the future to have stable ice costs. As you may know, ice is currently $195 an hour, and at about 10 hours a week of ice, this adds up to about $55,000 per season for us. So that means that, of course, skating is expensive for families, in the $1,500, $2,000 range for one skater, and perhaps a $3,000 range for two. So this is not with the facility rental fees that we pay, it's not an accessible sport for all children. So just throwing it out there that there's always a possibility for added subsidies from the municipal or other levels to make skating more accessible for the children and families who do participate. You may know that the town of Amherst subsidizes their minor sports at their rink, $60,000 annually, which means that the minor hockey clubs and the figure skating clubs can operate with much less ice expenses. Another hope for the future. We were consulted by the consultants who are working on the feasibility study for potential renovations to Centennial Arena. We're very excited about that. As we've been there for 50 years, we would be very excited to see improvements to it. And we would also hope that any improvements that may be undertaken would be able to be done in a timeline that wouldn't reduce our access to the ice during our season, which is September to March. If we were to lose access to the ice, we wouldn't have anywhere else to go. Currently, ice is quite a bit of demand, so we use some summer ice in Berwick. Right now, we're skating in Greenwood for the spring session. But if we were, because of any renovations, couldn't skate from September to March, we would not be able to pick up 10 hours around the other rinks. So looking forward to any renovations, but also wishing to highlight that we're hoping for continuous skating as those are done. Some of our beautiful photos. That one with all the crowd there is just our recent Alice in Wonderland show. And Claire with the medal, she's graduating with her gold pins. That means she's gone all through the star levels, received her gold, and she's going off to study nursing in Dalhousie next year. So she's been in the sport for 14 years here in Kentville. Is there any questions this evening?
That's great. Thank you so much, Maya. We really appreciate that.
Okay.
Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation, and definitely appreciate all you do for the youth. I know there's so many positive impacts from that. How many skaters do you have in total, do you know?
Yes, this year we are about 130 skaters.
Okay, wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I just want to thank you again for all you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Maya, for the presentation. I know that some of your senior skaters have done exceptionally well over the last bit. I've shared some of their pictures and so on. So please pass along congratulations, and that takes hard work for them to do that.
It does, yes.
You know, it really does, commitment and hard work. Yeah, I really appreciate all the volunteerism to make a program like this run. I think it's very important to have something like this in the community. And I don't know, 1975, I remember doing figure skating when I was a little kid. So I think there was something going on prior to 1975.
There was.
Yeah.
In 75, we became a registered Skate Canada club.
Okay, that's where it is. Yes, but that entire figure skating program has been in existence at that rink for an awful long time.
Longer.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maya. I just wanted to say, I mean, some of the notes that you made, like $1,500 to $2,000 a skater, that's very expensive. Does the group do anything in terms of like creating something sort of like a bursary of sorts, or like some extra money that's pooled together for kids that don't have access to that kind of money, other grants or anything like that you try and secure?
Families could use Jumpstart,
Okay.
but we do not have a bursary at the club level.
Okay.
It would be a possibility but it's also money that other parents are contributing.
On top of what they're already
Yeah.
paying. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Thank you very much, and congratulations on your upcoming 50-year anniversary.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So next on the agenda are the reports and recommendations. And so those have all been circulated for council's review. And so if I could ask CAO to present the various directors and present their reports, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. With the Finance Department's report is Director Wanda Matthews.
One, the package that has been pre-circulated, I will just go through a few of the points of the report and then move into the appendices. From an operational point of view, we did have our capital budget meeting that was approved. That took a significant amount of effort from the finance team along with the leadership team to move that forward in the month of March. And we are now working through our operating budget with a hope to bring that forward to council in early May. We also have submitted our financial information return, so that has come forward as a requirement very late in this year for 22-23, but we have complied with that submission. I will go to the very bottom of my report. You can see where we are for our outstanding tax receivable at the end of March. We did send out reminder notices to folks to let them know where their tax bills stood, and we did receive, we had a reduction in our aging of receivables by 36%. So those reminders do usually make quite a difference. And we are now at only 0.82% of our levy that has not been paid at this point in time. As we move into next month, everything for this year that remains outstanding will become a prior year levy. Will go out in May, right, for our next. If we look at Appendix A, that has our statement of operations with our forecast. We are at 90.1% of our expenditures, at 95.7% of our revenue. We have a surplus at this point of just under 900,000 that will cover us for the month of March. There were no significant changes from what we had forecasted for the month. The only item that I would point out is our payment in lieu of taxes. We did receive our federal amount and our provincial amount. The 591,065 is what was actually received, and it is in excess of what we anticipated, which is great news. Other than that, everything within the statement of operations is very closely in line with what we spoke about last month. Would you like me to continue, or would you like to ask questions for each?
Maybe I'll see if anyone has any questions. Okay, I don't see any lights on, but I do have two quick questions, Director Matthews. And you may have commented on this at the last CAC. On Appendix A, under area rates and frontages, under special assessments,
Right.
where the preliminary year-to-date amount is the 9614, that being 481%. What's the rationale for that difference?
That is an amount that there is generally a year-end adjustment to. So we are still forecasting it at around 2,000, but the year-end entry that offsets the revenue source hasn't been made yet.
Okay, that's great.
Yes.
And the other item was the interest amount, which looks like it's going to exceed what the annual budget was, which makes sense because of the rate. So presumably, when we do our operating budget for next year, we would perhaps adjust that upwards?
We would adjust it, we certainly can adjust it upwards somewhat. There are reallocations between funds at year end.
Okay.
So there will be, we expect it to go down some, but
Okay.
it will probably be over budget at year end
Okay.
based on where it is right now.
Okay, that's great.
It does provide us some flexibility as well for those year-end adjustments that we haven't forecasted for, so we're hoping that that excess will deal with
Yes.
any unexpected situations that might arise.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome. If we look at Appendix B, 1, that is our capital investment plan for the town. We are currently at forecasting 3.9 million. We have spent 3.2. We're at about 82% of forecast. We have invoices coming in for the month of March, and we anticipate our forecast to be fairly close to where we will land at year end. Any items that were deferred were embedded within our 24-25 to 28-29 capital plan. So those have already been accounted for in that way. There are a few projects that have exceeded their budget that once we have our final numbers for March, we may be coming back to council if they were funded through reserve, just to ask for permission for how those would be funded, but they are very immaterial. And ones that we've talked about to date, like the retaining wall in Canaan Avenue as an example, is over budget by a little bit. And we would be waiting to see where everything lands to know whether we need to increase the amount of money coming from reserve.
Okay.
Okay?
Great.
So nothing else I wanted to add on the capital investment plan Appendix B1. If there's any questions?
I do not see any lights on.
Okay. Moving to the sanitary sewer capital investment plan. That this, I believe, is the first time this has come before you since the budget was approved. We had a budget of $400,000 for 3 projects. Our forecast is $363,700. The main difference between the budget and forecast is the deferral of a generator for the Mill Run pumping station upgrade into 24-25. And we are at 78% spent at the end of March. Our preliminary invoices for the end of March. We do still anticipate some year adjustments to bring us to that forecast figure.
I still do not see any lights on, so
Great.
proceed.
Great. That moves us into the Q3 sanitary sewer fund operating statement. What is before you shows an annual budget of expenditures and revenue of just under 1.5 million. We are forecasting our expenditures to be 1,458,000, and the main difference is related to professional studies, dues, fees, and training. So the professional study was put in the budget last year for a consultant to look at rates. That engagement didn't occur before the end of March, so those funds were not anticipated to be expended. The other item you may notice is under total revenue. The transfer from operating reserves is $65,666 rather than the $98,700. That is to bring us to a balanced position. So the assumption would be we'll only move from reserves in what we need to bring us to that balance. So we do have a deficit less than what we anticipated at budget time last year. And that is the main areas I wanted to highlight from that operating statement.
Are there any questions for the director? I do not see any.
Okay, with
Thank you.
that concludes the report for this evening.
Perfect, thank you. Next on the agenda is planning and development.
Through your worship, Dave Bell has just a couple of comments to make on planning and development, and then we'll try and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. It is just a brief update, not so much about the planning department in general. We don't have an activity report available. We'll try to have that sort of a first quarter summary for the fiscal year, or for the calendar year of 24 for next month's CAC, where we haven't got our normal staff. Our development officer is off on her maternity leave. I think you all know she had a beautiful little girl about a month ago, and We had a visit from her last week, and baby and mom are doing great. So we do have an update on our Director of Planning position. Last week concluded the multi-week posting for the vacant Director of Planning position, and we have received several promising applications for the Director's position. Applicants who made it through the preliminary screening have been sorted, and the selection committee will be moving on to shortlisting this week. So interviews will be scheduled with the shortlisted candidates very soon, and we hope to have interviews completed by the end of April, followed by an offer to the successful candidate, and ideally a new Director of Planning on staff. We'll say late May, early June is our optimistic timeline for that position. That's the brief update on the Planning Department.
Thank you, Director Bell. Does anybody have any questions for the director? I see no lights, so
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Next up, we have Park and Recreation with Director Craig Langell presenting.
Evening, Mayor and Council. For the month of March, we have under Administration and Operations, just wanted to touch on that we've posted for a seasonal landscaper position. This is a role that has become vacant due to a resignation. And also we filled 22 of our 23 summer positions already, so we're just looking for one more as an aquatics lead in the pool. Under Facilities and Operations, just to note that the arena closed on March 29th, similar to the Kentville Silver Gliders. I just wanted to send an appreciation note to the staff for everything they did this year and the successful season they had in the arena. That goes to our supervisor as well as the arena staff that put a lot of effort into it this year. Also, Kentville Home Show, the event is April 19th to 21st. You'll see that it's advertised in our new arena sign as you're passing by the arena. So, and then the final area I'd like to touch on is under community outreach on the back of the page. So our staff have been busy engaging a few communities, one being at the Gorge. So from Grant Street to Condon to McDonald, we are consulting to inform them of the hemlock conservation that'll be going on. So the treatments and pesticides that will be occurring in April and May. At Oakdean Park, we closed our survey a few weeks ago. We received 70 survey responses back, which we hope to have a report for council for May, just so you can get a gauge on what the community of Oakdean is looking for. And that goes as well with Sherry Park, which is north of Oakdean Park. We have closed that, and we should have a report for you as well in May or June. So that is the end of my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions for the director?
Just a very quick one.
Councillor Jarrett, yeah, you're on now.
When the last time we had a lit sign, an active sign over there, it was whoever it was that was changing the sign had to throw their laptop on the hood of their truck and park right next. Is this one more accessible that they can change it from in the arena or in town hall or?
Even better, Councilor Gerard, they can do it from their laptop. They can do it from anywhere. It's cloud-based. And they can do it for 365 days. So our communications and administrative coordinator is already working on a year plan, and we set it up to start of the year, and then we just add if we need to add anything in.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I just have one comment, and actually wanted to know a little bit more about it. The Super Happy Interactive Fun Time program that took place at the Credit Union Recreation Complex. It sounds like it was amazing. Can you just give us a little bit more?
Yeah, that's the feedback that we've received, our active living coordinator received from the group, is that, it helped to get people engaged and active in the space, and they're just really hoping that we come back with it next year, which is the plan,
Okay.
is to continue to offer that service and get that particular community involved and active.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you very much. I see no more lights, so thank you.
I'd ask Chief Martin Smith to present the police report, chief's report.
Hey. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, CAO, Council, and Deputy Clerk. You should have a copy of our report before you. Just to touch on a few highlights. I think you'll notice our training hours have starting to raise over the last few months. That's, usually we start to pick up this time of year, so you'll notice our members will be doing a lot more training over the next few months before summer, and then again in the fall. Again, block hours are starting to increase, which is very important for the police service in the town as well for visibility. As far as training goes, we've had a variety over the month: ACES, crisis intervention, CPIC, workplace violence, which falls under OHS. And as well, we've been working on our strategic plan for the police service. We've been working in conjunction with the board on that as well. There's one thing I'll touch on at the end, but as far as budget goes, we're actually falling under budget still. We should have an update, hopefully a more accurate one by the end of April, that we're on term for meeting our budget, even though we've had our shortfalls. So one thing I did want to touch on is, in case anybody out there is listening, we're having an information session here tomorrow night for our cadet recruitment program, which is something that in my 25 years here in town of Kentville, I haven't seen it. So super excited about it. It gives us the ability to look at someone locally, embedded in our community, and the ability to look at recruiting them once they've completed the APA school. So I've had numerous people reach out and signed up for the session for tomorrow night, and it's open to anybody that hasn't registered as well. I just want to make sure I had enough space. So tomorrow night from 6 to 8 here at Council Chambers. Does anybody else have any questions?
I just had one question. With respect to the foot patrol hours,
Yep.
looks like they're up quite a bit from January to February. And I probably should know the answer to this, but I don't. The foot patrol hours are only during the day, or they are at night as well?
Yeah, they're at night as well. I'll be honest with you, I don't think it captures the true picture of how many hours.
Probably not,
It
no.
doesn't. I mean, I'd say it's on the low end of what they actually do.
Okay.
It's predominantly in the daytime would be our foot patrol, but it's at night as well, right? So
Okay.
it could be from going to a hockey game at nighttime, right, to be out involved with the community, right? So those types of things, walking around town at night, all those, yeah.
All
it's-
those things,
yeah.
okay. Wonderful, thank you.
Yep.
I don't see any other lights on, so.
Nobody has any questions tonight. This is good.
Everybody's getting off easy tonight.
We'll see how the next
Well,
one
yes.
goes. Through you, your worship, I'll ask Director Dave Bell to present the Engineering and Public Works report.
Thank you, CAO. Good evening again, everyone. Under Kentville Water Commission, there were no direct operational issues with the Water Commission in March, other than I think we had two water breaks during the month, which is typical for that time of year with the temperature changes in the ground, frost coming in, going out. We have a Water Commission and Source Water Protection Advisory Group scheduled for May 1st, where we will present the Water Commission operating and capital budgets. Also of note, our team just completed the annual water report to Nova Scotia Environment, reporting on the 2023 water quality, both treated and raw qualities, that is, well withdrawal quantities, which we have to be mindful of to be within our withdrawal limits for each of our 7 wells, and our overall compliance with drinking water safety. With sanitary sewer service, there were no issues during the month of March operationally. And under Engineering and Public Works, on Thursday, April 4th, last week, we received engineering proposals for the design, tendering, and inspection of the 3-year Donald E. Hiltz Road Underground Infrastructure Project and Business Park Water Tank Replacement. So our engineering team is reviewing and evaluating these proposals now and expect to complete a contract for the services with the successful proponent within the next week. And under projects, really the month of March was spent working with senior leadership team on creating and finalizing the town's capital investment plan budget, rather. And now that the budget has been approved, we are actively ordering capital equipment, preparing designs, tenders, and RFPs to complete the work approved in the 24-25 budget. And that, I guess, is my brief report for March, the month of March.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Does anybody have any questions for Director Bell? I have one. When you talk about that you received the engineering proposals for the design and tendering inspection of the three-year Donny Hills Underground Infrastructure Project, can you expand on that a little bit more?
Sure. Being a 9.7 million multi-year project, there's design components from water, wastewater, storm sewer, stormwater management, the road design itself. Even though this part of the project doesn't fund the road, it will dictate, you know, the shape and the profile and design of the road in order to have the services down at the right depth. So all that goes to an engineering firm for the design, project management, inspection services, all that sort of thing. It's too much to be done in-house. You know, we do a lot of our projects, capital projects in-house, and perhaps this might be the first time we've hired an external consultant since I've been here at the town to do that type of capital work. But being the size and scope, they will provide complete, like I said, design, tendering, project management, inspection of the project. So it's all built into the budget of that $9.7 million project, which will, as I mentioned, will take basically 3 years to complete, starting this year. We may not see even as much constructed this year as we had hoped or budgeted. Certainly it'll get designed and tendered and ideally awarded, and you'll see likely some clearing and some stormwater and erosion control work done in the 24 season, and probably more of the actual underground and pipe work done in 25 and then finished up in 26.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, with the stormwater management that would go in with that road, is it anticipated that some of that might slow down some of the water that's moving downhill? I mean, I don't expect that it would solve all of the water going downhill, but should it slow a bit?
Certainly the part that starts south of the Hills Road. So certainly it can pick up speed again and area as it travels between where the Hills Road corridor is and some of the lower areas, say along Park Street, all along that corridor where we have several vaults right through from Condon to the Gorge, to Palmater and Glenwood subdivision rather, and all the way out to the business park. So all those separate, Mitchell Brook included, separate vaults start south of the Hills Road and can be controlled and slowed down to that point. But then as you get north of that again, it picks up hundreds of acres of area and begins to flow. But certainly the more that can be controlled of that south land is a big help.
Yeah.
And that will be done as part of this project to have stormwater management areas along those 5 or 6 key vault areas throughout that 3-point-some kilometer stretch basically from Valley Waste to Prospect.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
No more questions?
There are no more questions.
So,
Part B?
yes, the stormwater master plan, we've asked Ahmad Qadri to present on that. That was a request from council to bring back for April's CAC meeting.
Wonderful, thank you.
Welcome, and we're throwing you right in.
Welcome, Ahmad. Happy to
Good
have you.
evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. So my name is Ahmad. I'm the newest addition to the Engineering and Public Works team. I'll be presenting the staff report on the Stormwater Management Master Plan. This has been a pressing concern for the residents, staff, and council. And I hope our report sheds some light on what has been has been done in the past and we aim to implement in the future. After reviewing previous reports, we've compiled some important findings to share with you. So staff reports concerning the stormwater management, which the council has received, is a detailed and comprehensive document. However, I'll provide a brief summary of its main points for your convenience. The past studies and assessments provide important information about the stormwater management for the time they were created. However, they provide minimal recommendation for the present climate, conditions, and land use. The 2015 Stormwater Management Report was initiated following the 2015 Flood Assessment Report. However, was created in draft format only. After reviewing the storm management reports, staff recommended that a comprehensive town-wide stormwater management master plan should be developed. These past reports provide an important baseline for the stormwater management that will be incorporated into the master plan. Some of the main points that we would like to see in the master plan is the following: identification and prioritizing the flood-prone areas in consultation with relevant stakeholders. Integration of updated hydrological models incorporating recent data and future development projections. Revision of rainfall parameters to account for the climate change impacts. Generation of new maps delineating optimal culverts and bridge dimensions for efficient stormwater conveyance. Enhancement of our stormwater best management practices through the refined modeling and stakeholder engagement. Formulation of preferred flood mitigation strategies tailored to high-risk zones. Drafting a comprehensive report outlining findings, recommendation, and a 10-year capital works plan. Finalization of the report, including schematic drawings and cost estimates post-adjustment. I would like to highlight the critical reason for the necessity of the comprehensive stormwater management master plan. These recommendations will underscore the importance of the strategic plan for the sustainable development and resilience against increasingly frequent and severe weather events. Moreover, they will emphasize the role of proactive measures in safeguarding the town's infrastructure investments over the next 10 years and beyond. Additionally, the recommendation will highlight the potential cost savings and long-term benefits associated with the stormwater management strategies. Our recommendation that Town Council approves the inclusion of $100,000 in the year 24-25 operating budget to undertake a comprehensive stormwater management master plan as outlined in this report. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Ahmad. Are there any questions at this juncture from any of council with regards to this report? Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. When was the 2015 Stormwater Management Report done? Was it prior to the floods and the issues in 2015, or was it done after?
I would not know that. Sorry, Councillor.
Do you remember that, Dave?
My understanding was it was after, Councillor Gerard, 2015, sorry.
It says following.
Yes, following in 2015. I don't recall.
No,
you
it
know,
says following the management report. But I'm
We had a-
wondering, because I think it was August, September that we had the floods in 2015, like when they first started.
Not 19, but you're talking 15.
15.
15, yeah.
Yep.
I wasn't here either, and I don't know what order that, I would think it was more, came after.
And it-
would be my understanding.
It really doesn't matter, but I guess my main question would be, after going all through this, and yep, it's wonderful to say, and it's wonderful to go, and we're gonna take into consideration the 2003 and 2014 and 15 and stuff, but they will be doing a ground zero, this is what we'll look at these studies, but we're gonna start at the river and work our way up and go, this is what Kentville needs for stormwater management system.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay,
although all that data will be available to the successful firm that procures the work, but, you know, the one that was done in 2015, the most recent one, doing that, there were very few recommendations in that. It was left in draft form, and, that perhaps the person or the firm that did that in 2015 will bid this work, and they'd have a great understanding, and that might give them a potential leg up even in costing it. So we may see some advantage to that if that firm chooses to bid this work here now in 2024.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have a few questions. So Councillor Gerard, I think actually you just mentioned about that whoever the successful company is, they'll have privy to those reports. So with regards to the December 2023 design point report, they will be privy to that, or that is something, as I think we understand it, will just be carried out in this year? Or will that be incorporated with this master plan?
That work as proposed and has gone now to detailed design as approved in the 24 capital budget, is being designed as we speak. So,
Okay.
Whoever the successful firm is that does this town-wide master plan will have that information and we'll evaluate it, but that work is still proposed to be done this capital season.
Yeah, I was wondering more about how it would be incorporated.
Incorporated,
Yeah.
they'll definitely incorporate it.
Okay. And there's an item there, revise the existing and climate change impacted rainfall amounts. Peak stormwater flows. Over what period would that be?
Over 1 to 1.
Sorry again? Yeah, it's they will look at all the different storm return periods, and now we're actually into, recommendations on the 1 in 200 year storm, which is the 0.5% chance of it happening. Basically,
Okay.
all those return periods, they sound like that happens once in 100 years. It's more or less a 1% chance of it happening, given a storm event. So now
Okay.
we're into the 1 in 200 year return period. It isn't that you design storm sewers necessarily for that, for that size event. You do design channels or pipelines that carry what's considered a waterway or water course to basically from uphill to the river, because it all has
Right.
to end up in the river eventually.
Yeah.
Storm sewer, like going down Main Street out here, that still isn't designed for a larger return period. We don't design storm sewers for
No.
big return periods.
Okay.
They're meant to basically surcharge and run at the gutter.
Okay.
And that is how you have to design storm sewer. Quite different from culverts and waterway pipelines. Use Condon as an example.
Okay.
Those are designed for no less than 1 in 100 year return.
Okay. Just two more really quick ones. When you talk about update the hydrologic model to incorporate upgraded structures, is that related to something environmental?
So it's pretty much when in the 2015 Kentville stormwater management report, there was hydrological calculations done,
Okay.
and these are just to calculate the amount of runoff water and storm events that happened in the past, right?
Okay.
So what we want to do is we want to build onto that and
Okay.
have what we have in our current timing for runoff water and
Okay.
with all the climate change that's happening around now, so we want to add
Okay,
to that.
that's probably where I was getting on
Yeah.
that environmental piece of it. Okay. Yep, okay, that's great. And then the recommendation that you have, do we have reserve? And that might be a question for Director Matthews. Do we have any reserves set up for?
For a budgeted amount, if we budget $100,000 in this year's operating, where will that money come from? Would it come from operating reserves, I guess, as well? Deputy Mayor's asking.
Sorry, I should have expanded my question.
Yes.
Are there any reserves for the stormwater management plan?
There wouldn't be specified reserves,
Okay.
but there is an operating reserve that has no
designation for?
designation assigned to it.
Okay,
Although, as you know from our capital budget process, our operating reserves are at a level where they're at moderate risk.
yes,
So there's not a huge amount of leeway there, but there
Okay.
are undesignated funds there that would be available if council chooses to do so.
okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
We would actively look for any available federal and provincial grants as well to help offset that cost.
Okay, wonderful. CEO? Oh, yes, sorry. Gerard? Sorry, Councillor Gerard?
Just one more. When the plan is done or when the study's done, if there are issues that retroactively need to be fixed, do they start digging stuff up, or do they beef up above where it's not been developed to accommodate for that? And this is, I might be putting the horse before the cart. I'm just curious.
Perhaps, we'll have to see what the recommendations are, of course, and they'll prioritize things, and as Ahmed said, there'll be a 10-year capital investment plan and recommendations and priorities.
Okay.
You know, certainly there will be things that are, you know, 50 years old and either out of date, undersized, or end of life, and, you know, that would be digging up. But other things could be stormwater management areas that are built new in certain areas. It'll be a big variety of things from replacements to new construction, for sure.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So there do not appear to be any other questions, so thank you very much, Director Bell and Ahmad. And I've just confirmed with the CAO that this is not something that requires a motion, and that it would be incorporated into our upcoming operating budget, unless anybody has any issues with that.
If I can, Your
Yeah,
Worship,
please.
we will just assume consensus to include this in the capital budget unless we hear differently from council.
Okay. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So administration is next on the agenda, so that is you, CAO, so go ahead, please.
So one more time, you have my very wordy CAO report. A lot of what was discussed before I would have been part of, whether that was the Director of Planning's position, whether that was the Stormwater Master Plan. Did attend meetings on the Regional Recreation Center, and I met with a number of community citizens about concerns. As to council, attended a number of committee meetings and met with individual committee members. We worked with the executive leadership team to prepare and present the capital budget, which was approved, and have been working with the Director of Finance and the senior leadership team now to make sure that we bring forward the operational budget in a timely manner. Happy to answer any questions if council does have any.
Councillor Maxwell, go ahead, please.
Thank you. CAO, I just heard you saying that you were at a meeting for regional recreation facility. Could you please update us and tell us what's going on with that, if anything?
Yes, we continue to try and work on a site, have discussions about the importance of timeliness in getting one regional application in. And then attended a meeting with the fellow CAOs and Acadia University as well. They have new leadership and may have an interest in rejoining the conversation. So I think that the biggest focus is that if we are to submit an application, then it would be important to make sure that that happens in a timely manner.
You mean an application for grants from the federal and provincial governments, or are we
Yes.
that far? That's what your application would be?
To apply for federal and provincial funding, we need to have agreement on one application from
From everybody?
Wolfville, Kentville, and Kings County, and that's what the discussions were around, I believe. Yes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? No? So next on the agenda, we have Housing and Community Partnerships reports.
Amazing. Good evening, folks. It's good to see you all. We all survived the eclipse today. We're still standing. Just gotta wait another 50 years, I think it is, till we're tasked with it again. I'm gonna be really brief this evening, so good evening, folks. It's great to see you and community members as well in the room. For those who don't know, my name's Alicia. My pronouns are she, her. The report in front of you tonight is kind of high level. I'll name that right off the bat, but we'll just go over a few key points in it before I introduce some amazing first-year community development students to speak to some work they did here in Kentville recently. Within the operations, I do just want to name that there is a new regional municipal staff working group that's coming together on the topic of rural homelessness. This has been in front of you folks in many different ways. Just this idea of all levels of government are feeling the pressures of the housing and homelessness crisis. And at this stage, as staff, we're coming together to see what's being heard in Wolfville and Berwick and Middleton and Kings County and within Kentville, and what's our collective experience, knowing that each of our communities are unique, but we all have something to learn from each other. And the real hope there is that there's some harmonization around our response and what we offer as community and as municipal government. So the intent there is to keep coming together on a regular basis. Other models we see like this are staff run through Valley Recreation, where recreation staff meet to kind of share resources. So that's the hope within that work. As in front of you, previous councils, I've shown all these funding avenues, and we're getting requests from community groups. So this is a space for us to navigate that as a group. And any pieces that come out of that, we'll be sure to bring in front of council as well. I just wanted to make sure you were aware that that is something that's happening. Furthermore, we have been in conversation with the provincial government because they're interested in coming to share a few more of their housing programs in Kentville specifically. One of the links within your report was to something called Meds Housing. They're really interested in coming to Kentville because we have the hospital, and they really want to speak to this housing program that takes existing units or bedrooms or surplus bedrooms in existing housing within Kentville to offer it to individuals who are in the medical field, who are working per se at the Valley Regional, to help with retention in community and attraction of healthcare staff. So they did a similar program in Bridgewater. So we're in conversation. They partnered with the municipality there. We're chatting with the municipal staff in Bridgewater just to see what their approach was. And their hope is that while they're here with a big focus on that program, they also want to speak to the Happy Pad and Backyard Suite initiative. So there's just some further information for you folks as counselors on that program if you do have constituents coming forward at any point on that. But at this time, that is just information for you. I don't see the province really being here until May, likely to do that program. Originally, we were thinking lining it up with the home show, but my own brain thought it was in May, but it's actually in April, as Craig just told us. So that's not going to be the same week. Anywho, now you know. For the next part, we do want to introduce some great first-year Acadia community development students. We've been in front of you multiple times before speaking to this really unique partnership we have with that program. Through the rec department alone, we have 4 different projects with them or partnerships, whether it be placements or going into their classrooms and working on things with them. This is a great opportunity with us or with that department, and definitely shows our commitment to education in our community through not only our partnership with Acadia, but the partnerships we have with NSCC as well. We are so lucky to be in a rural area and have so many energized young folk here to support us. So the students were here in March doing something called a first year experience. I'm not sure if you folks know this, but I'm Acadia Community Development grad myself, so I did do the first year experience as well. And so it was pretty fun to have them here and go through the journey with them. Essentially, the objective is that students are in community for a day, trying to have learning conversations to hear what is our community needs and what's possible. So they spent the morning speaking to specific community groups, which you see listed in the report, some of which include Indigenous community members, Black, African, Nova Scotian, members of our 2S LGBTQIA community members, and really hearing what is their hopes, wants, and dreams within Kentville. And the students had those conversations, we had lunch, and then in the afternoon we replicated a planning studio, but not one that you might see at Dalhousie University. There was Lego and Play-Doh and chart paper and markers for us to be creative around what might Kentville look like from a specific community perspective. This was a practice for the students really to dive in one perspective and share that back with one another, all knowing that anyone from any of those communities is intersectional. They have more than one experience, just as any of us in the room. Even if we're a youth, we may also be someone who's really active in the arts and culture community or our sports community, that is all true. So this was more so a practice, and the students here this evening, I will let them introduce themselves. They're going to speak to that. If you notice after the housing report, there's this big bulk of individual reports back to you. This was also a practice for the students to write a municipal government style report as their assignment to you. So they'll be here to speak to their experience, and if you have any questions, I trust their judgment, and I'm sure they have some great things and fun things to say about Kentville and all their learning. So Megan and Sherry, if you want to come up, the mic is all yours. And this is just the mic.
Exciting. Hi, my name is Megan Glasgow. I'm a community development student from the Bahamas.
Hi, I'm Sherry. I'm also a community development student, but I'm from Calgary.
I want to first discuss some of the needs expressed by community groups interviewed. The group I interviewed was Black African Nova Scotian community. A common theme among all the interviews was the need for affordable, dignified, and accessible housing, accessible and reliable transportation, and recreation areas that promote hobbies and cultural expression and community activities. During the interview I conducted, I learned a lot about the town of Kentville, its history, who built the town, and who lives here. That being said, I want to stress the importance of representation. The council of this town should represent the people that live in it. I don't see a lot of diversity here, and I believe that it's crucial in ensuring that everyone has a voice, especially when there are decisions being made that can affect these groups. I would also like to stress the importance of implementing policies that can protect tenants and address the power imbalances between landlords and tenants. Community gardens is also an important topic I would like to touch on. There's a need for gardens and greenhouses that can offer accessible produce for those that need it. Supporting local businesses as well as creating programs to promote the opening of more diverse businesses is also important. There needs to be more diversity in food options as well. This is why I'm suggesting the idea of a food truck park. This can provide a space for people to sell authentic and cultural foods. This is especially important because it can provide a space for those who may not be able to afford to have a restaurant or a whole building, but it would still like to sell food. What I have mentioned does not cover the full extent of the areas of need in this town. I hope that upon your review of the full report, you will gain more insight into what each group is in need of, be able to assess these issues, and find viable, sustainable solutions. Thank you.
So kind of touching on that as well, I was personally interviewing the arts and culture group, but I have reviewed all of the reports of my peers to hopefully do them all justice. There's a lot to cover. One of the biggest topics that was covered in every single report was the frequent and reliable transportation, reliable buses. Even in my own interview with arts and culture, the person I interviewed stressed very specifically the importance of having people be able to not only get around the town, but get to downtown for community involvement, and almost tying into housing, safe and accessible housing and affordable housing. A few of the groups, especially in the youth and transition years, they spoke about having transition houses instead of, there's a lot of like large family homes, but for a lot of people such as Megan and I, our age, we don't really need that, and it's unaffordable for us to even think about that right now, but we do need somewhere to stay, somewhere where we can stay to get started and further benefit the community. And with those types of housing, a lot of groups also said it would be beneficial to have decentralized. Decentralized neighborhoods, instead of having everything in one place where Kentville is a much larger area than Wolfville, people would all have to go to downtown to get their groceries or go for recreation. It would be very helpful and accessible if there could be grocery stores or other things that people may need within their own neighborhood, and that also ties into the transportation again. And going back to the transportation, sorry, I'm taking you on a wild ride here. A lot was mentioned about walking trails, and at first I was like, oh, walking trails. In the green spaces, people want recreational walking trails, but a lot of people mentioned that they would like the walking trails to be a mode of transportation. So in our afternoon, where we designed a lot of the ideas that we have found from our interviews, a lot of people had walking trails and bike lanes throughout the town where like car roads would have been, and I thought that was very wonderful and wholesome that people want to walk. And it is a very flat landscape that people can walk on, especially in downtown. That about covers most of the very large points. A few of the other points were relating to community recreation, especially for families and youth. They spoke a lot about having recreation opportunities such as facilities or in the green spaces that were did not have an entry fee. A lot of people felt the entry fee was a large barrier to recreational activities or community engagement participation. And then last thing that was brought up was the lack of access to healthcare. And one of the community members had an idea of a community center where everything could happen, like cultural occasions. It could be used for many things, even like gathering, as well as if a doctor were to visit, to have that be a space that they could go, people could check up, because I know healthcare is really hard to get out here. But yeah, I believe that wraps it up. Yeah. Yes. Questions?
Thank you so much, Megan and Sherry. Do any of council have any questions? Councillor Huntley.
Thank you so much for the information. I'm really curious about two things. One is with all the people you spoke to, how many people in total do you think that you would have spoken to?
Personally,
Yeah.
like we were all separated into different groups, so
Yes.
I only spoke to 2 people with my partner.
Okay.
I believe Megan spoke to.
Yeah, each group spoke to about 2 to 3 people, and there were maybe 6, 7, 8 groups or so.
Great.
Oh,
okay.
35 plus.
Oh, good. Whew, all right. And what were the age groups of those people? Do you happen to know
There
that?
were,
It was very varied.
yeah.
I had
Okay.
arts and culture, which doesn't really give you an age group, but many
Yes.
people, like some people did 15 to
To
75.
75.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we did. There was groups of seniors, youth,
Awesome.
as well as early years.
Okay.
It was a bunch of different community interest
Yes.
groups. So queer people, people of Black community, Indigenous communities, arts and culture.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, ladies, for that report and all the information. You talk about people wanting more walkways and pathways and so on. Are they talking about walkways and pathways to get from their homes to different services in the downtown? Or you know, because we're looking at an active transportation plan that will bring, you know, communities from the north end and the south end down to the main trail. But are they talking about more sidewalks in their communities, or what exactly were they looking for?
From my understanding, it was that they wanted to use walking trails as a mode of transportation, as well as like supplemented with the buses. One of the members that I interviewed was really set on having a shuttle, a downtown shuttle that would go from like all parts of the town to bring people downtown. But many of the other reports that I had read had stressed that the walking trails, there would be recreational walking trails in green spaces that they could use for recreation, but also walking trails and bike lanes that could be used for transportation for people to be able to go from their homes or other places, their workplaces, to places that they need to go.
Okay, thank you. I think maybe our AT plan will help with that once it's finalized.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I just wanted to say thank you for your report this evening, and also the reports that are contained in our package. They were excellent and comprehensive, and all the best in your future studies at Acadia. So, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, so that concludes the staff reports. And so staff, thank you for your reports and attendance. I think some of you might be staying behind as we move through the agenda. Next on the agenda is the review of the Valley Racket Club.
Through you, Your Worship, if you remember, there were questions on the report that was submitted by Director of Recreation at the March CAC meeting, and the director was unavailable. We did provide an email follow-up with answers, but we felt it would be of benefit to have the director speak to any questions that councillors may have at this point in time. So, thank you, Mr. Lancho.
I'd also like to thank Becca for providing that recommendation along with the batting cage recommendation on that day. So it was a full lot of recommendations for her, so I appreciate that.
Okay. Did you want to do any sort of preamble first, Director Langell, or did you want me to just open it right up for questions?
Just open it right up. Let's get right to it. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Okay. Who would like to start? Councillor Gerard, go ahead, please.
So has staff come up with a spot where this would work?
Staff have not come up with a location within park space or within sports space or any type of recreational space at this time. That's all I can say, really.
Okay.
Is what was provided to us and what was provided to council was our recommendation on the impacts. No matter where you locate a facility on a park space or on a sport field, it will have an impact on another group. It just depends really where that location ends up being.
Is it possible, and I'm sure you've got access to it, it might take a little digging, but to find out, so for example, I think their first option was next to the Valley Credit Union Rec Center on the west end of town. Do you have, you probably don't have them now, but do you have the frequency that, I know that the field is used. Is it used frequently? Is it used once a week? Is it used 30 times a week? Is it?
The field behind the Credit Union Soccer Facility,
Yep.
Field 4, that is, I will say, probably the most important soccer field we have in this town and probably in the valley for access and use. It is the only field in Kentville that we can use in the rain. We can use in the field dimensions for the men's and female leagues, like the adult leagues. What you would have seen in the questions and answer as well that I sent was the usage in Oakdean. It is not as high as Field 4 or the other location. Having a racket facility up there will still have an impact on the space. With soccer, they have specialized field size and goal nets, so it's not like we can take a group from Oakdean Park because they're 13U and go down into an adult league because they're different size nets or different dimensions of
Yep.
fields. So that's where it gets a little bit more complicated. So if that was the case, we'd have to either reduce field time for them, or they'd have to go to a different municipality to find space.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. Thanks, Director. This may be through the chair, if I may, to the CAO. Has there been an opportunity to look at other lands that the town has that could potentially work? If we're hearing that these two aren't gonna work, is there possibly a plan C? I'm not gonna be redundant. I've mentioned this a couple of times. I'd hate to lose this opportunity, and I'd like to see if we could work with them. So if we've had an opportunity to assess other lands we may have that may be suitable.
So we have had a few general discussions on sites, and then if the direction of council is to look at any of our land holdings and come back, we would refine those further. But when we looked at our current sports fields and green areas, it's addition through subtraction. And again, it's not what you necessarily think. You take out a soccer field and you just move everything to the next field. Again, we would be looking for direction from council at the end of this session as to whether you want us to look in detail at other town of Kentville land holdings and report back.
That would be my suggestion if it's the will of council. You know, if there is a potential for maybe another parcel of land that may work. Yeah.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, thank you. We did have a discussion outside, and I understand what you're saying about the field sizes and so on. But honestly, I'm concerned because, I'm looking at a schedule of, events that might be held on Oakdean Field at certain times and on certain days. But it depends on whether the soccer association is going to need that time. And so I have a problem with having space held that may or may not be used. And if it's not used, then it's just sitting there. And that's what I've seen at Oakdean Park for several years now. The only time that field was heavily used was during the Gun Balderson soccer tournament. That was the only time. And I've seen ultimate frisbee up there once in a while, not regularly. I've seen flag football up there once in a while, and some soccer practices, but there are 2 fields there. And originally that space was designed for 1 field. And the second field was put up there, to appease the soccer community when they lost a field down at the West End. I really would like to encourage staff to look hard at that space, and why are we holding a space just because it might be used? I think that's a waste of space, and before we send this group packing off to another community, I really think that we should take a look at that. We can still run a trail up around and so on. I envision that the racket facility might go on the top field, and we would still have the bottom field, we still have the playground, we still have the basketball court. There would still be room there for other things off to the right-hand side of the field. And I think when we're looking at an opportunity to have a facility like a racket facility, I really think that we need to be creative in looking at our spaces. And I would just really encourage that, because in my experience and living in that area, I haven't seen that facility heavily used at all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Councillor Gerard, go ahead, please.
Thank you.
Just one moment, please. Thank you. Yeah.
Has anyone thought about the field, and I don't think it's technically a field of anything, on Sherry Avenue? Like, I saw on Facebook there was a questionnaire, what are we gonna do with Sherry Avenue Field, or what would you like to see there? And I heard a lot of people say aside from the people that live next to it, would that be an option? Is it big enough?
Yeah, it's tough because there's only 8-foot width access. There's 4 access points into Sherry Park, and that's why right now there's only a small swing set. It's because it's hard, you can't really get anything in there to do any work. So to build a whole facility in there, you would be going through a lot of private property to make it happen.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. So normally I wouldn't make a comment. You know what? I'm going to go right to Councillor Huntley. But before I go to Councillor Huntley, I'm just going to say normally from the chair, I wouldn't make a comment around a particular subject. But if everybody around the carousel is fine with it, and if I remain in my chair to make that comment once Councillor Huntley goes. Go ahead, please.
Hi.
Hi.
What I'm wondering is, again, I'm not the expert on fields by no means, so I look to you for this, but let's hypothetically say that there was a field given to them for the facility. Now, soccer league would have to go somewhere else to play. What I'm wondering is, what would we lose in monetary that they would pay us normally?
It's not really anything to really worry about from
Yeah.
minor soccer and
Yeah.
from minor baseball. What we charge our minor associations are quite cheap because we
Good.
want to
Okay.
make sure that they have access to our spaces. And we want to make sure that youth can afford to play the sport.
Yes.
So each sport pays under $5,000 to have access to all the fields. It's really affordable from
Yeah.
that perspective. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So my comment would be more so similar to what Councillor Maxwell was saying around the creativity and the innovation to making something, a facility of this nature, come to fruition in town of Kentville. I think the consensus amongst council is that we would like to see it here. But it has to be done in such a way that you, as the director of recreation, it has to work as well. And I don't know exactly the best way to do that, or the best location for that, or what we would have to maneuver or change, and those would probably be discussions that would have to transpire with the group. But that would be my comment around this facility.
Sure, we can look at every space we have and provide those cons and pros and cons to them. So council's aware that whatever decision that you decide, you have all the information. It's the same with the original recommendation. I did not want something going forward without council hearing from the soccer association. I want to make sure that everyone's aware that they have all the information before a decision's made.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we should probably have a motion around that. And if somebody would somebody like to make a motion around directing the CAO through Director Langell? Or okay, You're not wording it? Okay. I think probably the wording would be something along the lines that that council direct the CAO to work with Director Langell to look at various sites within the town of Kentville. If you think there should be more to that.
Should we add the team or the group, or the head people of the group as well to be involved in?
We absolutely can. I think, yeah.
Through you, your worship, we can look at any potential sites and be creative. We would, as administration, provide the pros and the cons, and we will provide an administration recommendation on that. We will liaison with the Racquetball Association through the process, but ultimately it will be administration recommendations. Ultimately, once council has that, it's up to council to make a decision, collective of council. But we will be creative in the sites we look at, but we would look at some form of a SWOT analysis and recommendation on each of the sites. We would present that to council at the May CAC meeting, and we would as well have discussions with the racquetball / tennis / pickleball group through that process. Does that work for council?
Okay. Deputy Clerk, did you want to read that?
So a possible motion might be that council direct the CAO to continue to explore town-owned spaces that might be appropriate for a racquetball facility, and this report will be presented at the May Council Advisory Committee meeting.
Okay. Would somebody like to move that? Okay. Councillor Gerard, second. Councillor Huntley? Oh, sorry, just
Who seconded that?
Paula, second, Councillor Huntley, and so we'll move into discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Maxwell.
Yeah, I'd just like to change that from racquetball to just plain racket facility, because I'm not entirely sure that they're gonna play racquetball in that facility. It's a different type of court, so just a racket facility.
You're okay with the change? Yep. Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay. Are we ready for the question? Does anybody need me to read the motion again? Okay, voting is now open. Mhm. And voting is now closed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, and thank you, Director. Okay. And, okay. Next item on the agenda is correspondence. So we have 2 items of correspondence. Deputy Clerk, were you looking at those, or was it going through you, CAO?
So there's 2 pieces of correspondence that were received. They were included on the agenda packet as per best practice. The correspondence from Mike McLean dealt with stormwater management and specifically what should be included in the stormwater master plan and concerns on West Main Street. And Minister Lore's letter to all municipalities talked about a reshuffle of EMO to make it its own department, and as well to have its own frontline guard made up of volunteers with specific skills to be able to be deployed when a state of emergency exists. So those were the pieces of correspondence. They were included as per best practice.
Does anybody wish to speak to either items of correspondence?
Just
Oh, yep, just one.
quick point, when we had
Go ahead.
flooding, and this is based to the CAO, when we had flooding last summer, in speaking with some of the firefighters, does the higher ups, like, is there a hierarchy, and does everybody know? Because the fire fighters that I was talking to said, you know, they said they weren't a whatever comfort station, and it was only needed for a couple of people, but nobody seemed to know at the town or through them. There was no coordination. Is there something there in place now that you know, anybody that's coming into any position can open up the file and go, this is who we have to call, and this is the way that things go?
My expectation is that there would be. I can look into it for you. In Antigonish, then yes, there would be a repository that would have a listing of the community shelters, what they could provide, where they were located, as well as, comfort centers. There's a difference between a comfort center and an emergency shelter. So they should be laid out in your plan and should be available. I will follow up and make sure that is the case. But,
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. I just had a couple of comments, and it was in, maybe a couple of questions in relation to the piece of correspondence received from Mike McLean on West Main Street. The comment about installing a permanent backup generator at the location of the pumps behind Shanix. Is that something that has been discussed at any time and that potentially Director Bell could speak to?
So I can speak
Or
to
if you can,
the
please.
conversations. Yes, that did come up in conversations with 2 of the residents from West Main. And it isn't in the immediate plans to have a permanent generator, but we would be open to the discussion on that. As part of the stormwater master plan, I expect that will be looked at. We are in the process of ordering the 3rd pump that was in the capital budget and was approved.
Okay.
Director Bell felt that with the portable generator that was available, that could be located on site. He didn't, and if I'm speaking out of turn, please correct me, he didn't feel that there would be a situation where we wouldn't be able to deploy it, but certainly it would be looked at as part of the overall stormwater master plan.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is new business, and the first item on the agenda is the Michelin Conference travel expenses. And I believe I am handing that over to you, CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. There was a request to have this added to the agenda for discussion. Just to give you my history in it, Mayor Snow had indicated that she wouldn't be able to attend, but that regularly in the past she had, with the exception of the COVID year. I think 2021, but I'm not sure. She said that she had approached the deputy mayor, but the deputy mayor was unable to attend, and that she would like to put it out to council to see if there was any interest. And that she did, and there was one councillor that expressed an interest. Mayor Snow indicated that she had found the conference to be very beneficial. There was a lot of discussions on economic development. She was able to promote the area. It's heavily subsidized by Michelin, where we pay for meals on travel and our plane ticket, and everything else is covered. Michelin is a very large industry with very large impact in our community. I know it's located in the county, but there's certainly spin-off benefits to the town. That a number of residents that work at the facility live in town, and overall, she found that attendance was beneficial. According to the policy, it was left to myself to determine whether there'd be sufficient monies in the budget. It's in April. But like anything else, before a budget's approved, you have to make some level of extrapolations. It was a conference that we had historically participated in, so I approved it. I do recognize that there's concerns around transparency, and that there's concerns around policy G4, and my suggestion was that that would be something that would be good for discussion as we're going through the operational budget. That's what I would have to say. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, absolutely. But it may be something that council wants to have a discussion on during budget, or we can have it tonight if that's deemed more appropriate.
Okay. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thanks, CAO, for that descriptive. I'm not concerned with the policy right now. It is what it is, and it's set up, and the funds were budgeted, so I'm not questioning necessarily the process. My concern is what benefit we're getting out of this trip. So I know there was discussion back in, I think, mid-February that Mayor Snow couldn't attend, and Deputy Mayor Savage declined to go in her place. And for anyone wondering, it's being hosted in the city of Anderson, South Carolina. So it's from April 15th to the 19th, and it's an international network of Michelin cities in an initiative to bring cities from around the world that have a Michelin production facility in their municipality together to share their experiences. And I think it was launched in 2017. Mayor Snow had headed 2 of these, one in France and one in Spain. And there are expenses associated with the trip, obviously, as the CEO informed us, with airfare, meals, travel, transportation, parking, incidentals, are just a few. And there was a 3rd trip in Mexico, but Mayor Snow said we weren't invited. So this would be the 4th event, but it'd be our 3rd time as the town sending someone. So I went on their website, and this is what they say. In addition to global experts, best practices, and exciting site visits, we will treat you to the best of Southern culture with food and entertainment, from barbecue to banana pudding, from bluegrass music to college football. We invite members to experience our region in style. And I want to just say that this has nothing to do with any particular member going. If any of us were going, I would have these same concerns. So I'm not attacking or at anyone. It's just the way that things are now. People are starving. We have people living in tents. And I just think this is a poor way to spend money right now. Not only that, the Michelin plan is in the County of Kings, and we don't have one in Kentville. Wolfville and Berwick were invited, neither attend. Wolfville's never attended as far as I reached out to the mayor. I'm just wondering what the town is getting out of this. Whenever I spend money, I like to see what my return is. And regardless of the cost. And I know that there's a budget. I know to some people, $1,000 or $2,000 may not be a lot of money, but it is still money that we're accountable for. And I know myself, I got a family of 7, so when I go to the grocery store and I have $500 in my pocket that I've taken with me or whatever, and I only have to spend 4, I feel great. Just because you've budgeted, money doesn't mean you have to spend the pool of it. So what I'm saying is, I just want to know what value that we have, because these trips now, we've got Spain, France, and now South Carolina, and it does perceive to the public like a vacation. I'm sorry I have to say that. That's what the perception could be. So I can totally understand why the counties or the municipalities that have Michelin plans in them may wish to attend, But I don't understand how we can justify spending money on this. And I would further urge council to not spend tax dollars on this. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I've brought this up several times through my 2 terms now, about some of these things that we as council are spending money on, the various trips, whether it's this Michelin conference or whether it's going to FCM events outside of the province, or even the number of times that we attend FCM events. I did a lot of in-service training when I was a teacher, and we had to go to in-services. And to tell you the honest truth, and you could ask any teacher, they'll tell you they don't learn hardly anything there. You might pick up 1 or 2 things. And whenever I've gone to FCM, when it was here in this province, and NSFM, I pick up a few things that I learned for me, but really to translate back into this job, or to translate back into the town and giving the citizens something back from my trip, no. And these are, to me, this is taxpayer dollars. And I don't think just because we're invited to something that we should be jumping on the bandwagon to attend. FCM comes around, it has its time at, various locations through the country. It comes here to Halifax. When it comes here to Halifax, I think, yeah, good, let's go down and see what's going on. But really, there's nothing there that, other than my own personal learning, that translates back into giving the people in the town of Kentville something for sending me on that trip. And does it make me a better counselor? I really don't think so. No. So I just feel that this is something that we really need to look at as a council, and future councils need to take a look at. Nowhere in policy G4 does it talk about our budgets and how much money we're allotted for our term, and what happens if we go over that budget. And I've been told various things. But the big thing that stuck with me was, yeah, Maxwell, if you don't spend your budget, then that's sitting there in the pool of money that's been provided for council. And so if somebody goes over their budget, then we're just going to take that money out and put it onto them. And to me, that's not fair. It's not the way that things should be done. And if I'm trying to save taxpayer dollars, then I don't think that what I save should go on to, somebody else. And Councillor Zabian, I think, is absolutely right. It is perceived as a vacation, and to be totally honest, it primarily is a vacation, and it's at the taxpayer's expense. So my recommendation, and I would like to recommend this, is that this policy, G4, be reviewed and updated by probably the new council coming in, and it should be done early in the term. And I think this is something that we need to really get a handle on. We need to be transparent about it. If I go over budget, then that should be pointed out. It should say Maxwell had $3,000 and she spent $6,000. And it should be blatant so that everybody in this town knows where the money is being spent and by who the money is being spent. And honestly, I mean, most of us have been to FCMs or NSFMs. Only the mayor has been the one traveling really out of province, but we have 3 people attending a conference in Vancouver pretty soon. And, would I like to go to Vancouver? Sure, but, I'm not going to spend that money. I'm not going to spend taxpayer dollars to go to Vancouver and visit my friends that I went to university with. But, I could easily do that. So I brought it up so many times, and nothing happens. So, I'd like to make a recommendation. If I could make a recommendation, I'd like to make a recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. I think the CAO wants to say something.
So I go back to what I said originally. I think this would be a very robust conversation around budget time. I would make the point that a lot of our grants have stemmed from negotiations with FCM, that any of the ISIP money that we're talking about for the Donald Hiltz Connector, any of the green infrastructure funds, a number of funds that are available for transit, gas tax money, and it used to be that FCM was a big city only participant. So a lot of the programs were developed for Toronto, for Montreal, for Vancouver, and for others. What smaller sized municipalities attending is it gives you a voice at the table. So I absolutely believe that there's a robust discussion to have around the budget time, and council can talk about how they want to display who's attending what conferences or anything else. But to have that discussion tonight, I don't think it is as inclusive as it should be.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Through the chair to the CAO.
Go ahead.
Through the chair to the CAO, we get all the grants coming to us from FCM, correct? They come, we see them all in our newsletters and so on.
Yes.
And so we can apply for those grants, whether we attend an FCM event or not. Every municipality gets those grants, gets the information on those grants.
Yes, and quite often they're broken down based on community size, community population, The point is that if you don't have a seat at the table when those are being negotiated, if you don't have a vote at the table, what had historically happened in the past, and you saw it with transit specifically, was any of the funds that were allocated towards the larger cities by having a more diversified membership than during those negotiations. There's a broader array of classes. We weren't successful in the Housing Accelerator Fund, but if you remember, there was an urban and a rural class. You didn't have to compete against HRM or St. John or Fredericton. Again, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm saying that it deserves a more fulsome discussion than at a CAC meeting in April.
Before we have that discussion, could you find out for us how many rural communities actually attend FCM?
I can certainly get you a range. I wouldn't want to be specific to the number, but I can get you a range.
How many rural communities in Canada there are, and how many actually attend? How many rural municipalities there are in Canada, and how many actually attend?
Yes, I can get you some parameters based on the information that's available as to how exact it is. And I think what you're asking for is not just FCM membership, but conference attendance from the various classes of
Right.
municipalities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Councillor Maxwell, that meets with what you were looking for
Yes.
this information through the CAO, and then further discussions during operating? Okay, thank you. Any more discussion? Seeing no lights, okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is the Town Hall renovation project. And I think Deputy Clerk West, you are handling that.
I'll just bring up the report here. So on March 21st, 2024, council met for a discussion on the possible paths forward to making Town Hall more accessible and adjusting to growth that we are likely to see in the future for staff in Town Hall. And at this meeting, no decisions were made. However, members agreed to bring this matter to the CAC committee for further discussion. And the discussion at that meeting resulted in a statement that is roughly the following. Given that the Town Hall building does not currently meet the needs of council, staff, or visitors in terms of office space or accessibility, council recommends that the CAO engage an architect, and this would be through the operating budget process, to, number one, consult staff and council and the community around a town hall renovation. And number two, create a costed renovation design plan for the building with planned completion by November 2024. And two of the things that support this recommendation are an accessibility audit that was completed on the town hall building, and also an energy efficiency deep retrofit study and model that was completed on the building. It's a very succinct report. Is there anything?
Thank you,
else?
Deputy Clerk.
Thank you.
I will go to Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. A couple years ago, I believe it was Jason Seal from the Kentville Police did, Jason and Mike Goss did an audit, a safety audit, and that's where some of the stuff downstairs came from. The architect or whoever is looking at the town hall building might want to look at that as well. If there are any, I know some of those accordion doors and stuff aren't secure. So yeah, make that accessible to them.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. Any other comments with respect to the report? So if everybody is amiable to this, we had a general consensus to move forward with the direction as outlined by the Deputy Clerk. Yes? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jennifer. You're welcome. Now we are at the section where we're at the public comment section. So we have some members of the public here this evening, and you are invited to come up and speak to council if you so wish. And if you could say your name and where you live. And welcome back. Oh, just one second. There we go. Sorry. Thanks, Jennifer.
Do I have to repeat that, or?
You weren't on. No, that's okay. It's all right.
Okay, well, three things, none of them huge. The first one is I was quite impressed with the presentation done here tonight by the Kentville Silver Gliders. I saw a little shock on your faces, and I'm sure everyone did when they realized the price that these skaters have to pay, anywhere between $15,000 and $102,000 a year just to participate. What they failed to mention or didn't is that price is actually not the true cost. That is quite low compared to what the true cost is, because they do a tremendous amount of fundraising. Like there's, every kid is obligated to have, like, I don't know if it's $120 worth of ticket sales or $60, or their parents have to make up that amount. In addition to that, then they just have the regular fundraising, which includes all of that, bake sales, and that we all do, we all participate in, as well as those shows that they put on. And when they say that they're applying to get a competition here, that brings in a tremendous amount of money for them as well. So add that to the grants that they get from municipal governments like yourself, or Skate Canada, or Skate Nova Scotia. All of those monies go to reducing the cost to those individual skaters. So when they say $1,500 to $2,000, that's low compared to what it actually is. So I want you to bear that in mind when it does come to you and you are considering a grant, because at the end of the day, we are Canadians, and we all should skate, or all should have the opportunity to skate. So throw that out there for you. And then add to that, that even with that, the nobody is still, that's still not going to be affordable for every family. So if you bear that in mind when, of recreation can bear that in mind when they're looking at the rink, and they can add some more public skating time for families, like during family hours. I think that's one of the things that our residents have been asking for too. So I'll throw that out there. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to know, and it's just merely a question, is the UARB hearing that was held on the Bryson Developments, the appeal. Do we have a decision on that? It's April, and I haven't heard anything yet, and maybe there just isn't one yet, but if you do, if you could let us know, I'm curious about that. And then the third thing is, back in January, you know, one of my big mantras is the extraordinary legal costs that have been spent. And in January, you produced a great report on breaking down all the legal expenses that we've had over the year. And you had promised, or I believe you did, that you're going to do that every 3 months or every quarter. So the end of January would be the end of that 3-month period. So I'm kind of hoping you're going to do that again. So that's just a little reminder. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? Okay, looks like there is not. So we have an in-camera session that we need to go into on items concerning legal, which must be conducted in a closed session. So we do require a motion to go into a closed session. Thank you. Second, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried.